Hey guys, Sam here. Today I'm going to be making a super simple but honestly incredible apple cobbler. Juicy apples, buttery, biscuit-esque topping, but super easy. So let's get started by peeling our apples. Ultimately, you'll need seven cups of peeled, sliced apples. You'll want to peel them nice and thin. I like to use my little, I think it's called a Johnny peeler here. Makes really quick work of it. So to get to the 7 cups of apples needed, I usually start with 2.5 pounds of apples. And when all said is done, I'll have about 7 cups or 700 grams. It's so much easier than how I used to peel them. And then if you're using a peeler like this, you're going to kind of have like a slinky apple. So go ahead and just cut that in half. That way you don't have apple rings. At least that's my preference. I guess apple rings would be totally fine. It's just how I feel. We'll do this till we have 7.5 cups. And when I say thin slices, I like them to be under 1/4 inch. So you can see that right there. It's just so satisfying. So once we have all of our apples peeled, we're going to head over to the stovetop and we're going to cook the apples. Let me tell you, when I first started this recipe, I didn't think we were going to be cooking it. I wanted to keep it super easy and just toss everything in the pan and bake it that way. But of course I had to test everything multiple ways, and you are just going to get a much better flavor and just a better sauce, a better texture to the apples if you cook them first. And fortunately, this is a super quick process. 700, look at that. So we used exactly 6 apples, but your mileage will vary depending on the size of your apples. All right, let's head over to the stovetop. We'll start with 2 tablespoons of salted butter. You could use unsalted if you prefer. And we're gonna melt this in a medium-sized skillet. So we're melting this over medium heat, and once the butter is melted, we're going to add our apples. And we're also going to add a 1/3 cup or 65 grams of firmly packed light brown sugar, a tablespoon of lemon juice, 1.5 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Give everything a quick stir, and then we're going to add a 1/2 cup of water. We're going to cook this, stirring constantly for about 5 minutes. What we're looking for is the sugar to dissolve, and we want this juicy sauce to start to thicken just a little bit and cling to the apples a bit more. All right, once you have these off the heat, we're going to stir in 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Oh, I still don't have a 3/4 teaspoon. Here's my half, and half of that half. All right, we'll stir this in, and we're going to bake this in a 13x9 baking dish. It's actually technically a little smaller than a 13x9, but it's prettier, and everything is still going to fit nicely in this. This is what I'm using. If I can pour it without losing all my apples. All right, I'm just gonna spread this into an even layer. Whew, it's steamy. All right, and let's just set this aside and make our biscuit topping. Careful, it's hot. Oh, you should also have your oven preheating at this point to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Can't believe I didn't say that sooner. So the apple cobbler topping, it's very biscuit-esque. A little softer than a regular biscuit, but it works really nicely with the apple filling. We're going to start with 2 cups or 250 grams of all-purpose flour, and we're going to add 1/3 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar, or 65 grams. You usually won't find brown sugar in a biscuit recipe, but I love it here. It really accents the apples so nicely. We're also going to add 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and we will add a 1/2 teaspoon of table salt. All right, let's go ahead and stir the dry ingredients together real quickly. Okay, and there's no mixer needed for this, no pastry cutter, no food processor. It's like a drop biscuit, so it's really easy. We're going to be using a 1/2 cup of melted unsalted butter. Add that into the bowl. Get all of that in there. We don't waste butter. I even made a butter sticker for my membership on YouTube because that's how strongly I feel about butter. We're also going to be adding 1 cup of heavy cream. And if you don't have heavy cream, you could use buttermilk instead. That also has a nice flavor, but of course I've tested this many, many ways, and heavy cream is just my favorite. So we're going to gently stir this together. You want everything to be nicely combined and uniform, but you don't want to overwork the dough big time, because if you stir too much, it's going to be dry, dense, and rubbery. Spatula would actually be better for this step, but I'm already committed to the spoon. All right, let's bring back our cobbler, and we're just going to drop this over the apples. I'm going to try to evenly distribute it, and I don't want any super tall like mounds because I want this to cook evenly. And it's not going to completely cover the apples, but it'll mostly cover it. I'm so excited to eat this. Apple cobbler, it seems like something so simple, but we tested, Nikki, how many versions of this recipe did we test? So we did over 7 different versions. This is so good. We also tried like the competition that's out there, because we always want to make sure, you know, if we're putting a recipe out there, especially something like apple cobbler, when there are literally hundreds, thousands of recipes, like I want to make sure we're putting out the best version. That has always been my goal, so I really feel that we did that here today. All right, we have that cobbled topping. And then real quickly, we're not done yet, just going to mix together a tablespoon of granulated sugar with 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Just gonna Mix that together. No time for a whisk. We're just going to use our little teaspoon. And we're just going to sprinkle this over our biscuit layer. That's a really nice touch on top. All right, this is going to go into our 350 Fahrenheit preheated oven, where it's going to need to bake for about 28 to 30 minutes. When it's finished baking, you're going to just check to see that the biscuit is baked all the way through. You can use a toothpick for this, but I usually like to use like a sharp knife or a toothpick to just kind of pry into the biscuit and just make sure there's no wet batter and that it's nice and dry and baked through. All right, this is all bubbly and looking good. And as you could hopefully see, the biscuit layer seems to be cooked completely through. So we are going to let this cool for a couple of minutes, like, I don't know, 10 minutes. You just don't want to burn yourself, and you want the sauce to have a little time to just thicken slightly so it's not too watery. Once it's had time to cool, let's go ahead and take a look at this. And that is how you make my favorite apple cobbler. Juicy apples, perfect biscuit topping. All you need is some vanilla ice cream. Oh, it's still hot. I love it, I love it, I love it. Doesn't like cooking anything, huh?
Actually cutting apple peeler quarter slices.
Okay. That's actually not as much as I thought.
Well, when you're peeling all the apples.